enough room up there for all of us.
Can you boys hear me? How does it sound? Worse than before?
That sounds better.
So I actually went and set up the I'm sitting in a beanbag chair with a little portable stand with my laptop, and then I've got the mini mixer hooked up with a mic plugged into it, and then a headphone coming out so I can listen. All right. Well,
Sounds good to me.
This is gonna mess with me all game because I can hear myself on one side of my headphones, and then you got on the other side. Oh, is it really that bad that it's
It's
what about now?
Sounds good.
Hey, just as crackly.
No, it's not.
Okay, because I switched to push to talk instead of like the voice activity thing.
Just don't forget to push to talk.
Big facts. That's
Gotcha.
why I said it with the space bar.
Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com. Request your new patient office visit online. When you mention Amen Extreme, $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare. Modern medicine the old-fashioned way. And sponsored by Jets Pizza of Springfield, Fort Campbell, Clarksville, and Goodlettsville. Let's get Jets. It is really hard to believe we are heading into the final week of the regular season, and we just finished week 10 of 11 yesterday, and now heading into week 11 of the 8-man football season for the teams we cover. I'll start off with you, Jack. How was your weekend off?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I really enjoyed things. Everyone needs a day off, especially you guys and things like that. So
we've all. I mean, James, of course, has taken an extended break off because of taking care of his kids. But he's been working. He's been working hard in the days he's had to fill in. He had this weekend. James is actually joining us remotely.
I've been doing the work.
Yeah, James is joining us remotely from his home North Nashville. Taking care of his kids and everything because he didn't want to leave them with someone else for 3 days in a row. So, James, you pre-show you were kind of upset that your kids slept at 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's going to be a rough night for you, huh?
I'm hoping not. They're awake now. Like any parent knows that struggle of like the kids dozed off at 3:30 and they have school the next morning. It's not a good situation. So you kind of want to avoid that. But, it happens.
Yeah.
This is the true definition of like making it happen. I'm literally sitting in a bedroom at my apartment with a mobile USB mixer, a mic that I had, my laptop, and then a pair of headphones coming out of the mixer, making it happen.
Yeah, James making it happen at his home, and just part of the things to do, and it's one of those situations that we all will have to overcome, or the majority of us will have to overcome at some point. But James making it work on Extreme Radio. So and we'll get Zachary in on the show for his picks later on. He's good to go for the playoffs. He will not be in this weekend for the games that we're planning on covering. But he'll be back in full swing in November for the stretch of the postseason, the national championship, and the All-American games in December. So he's still doing well, and we'll see him next Sunday.
Boys, might I add, I just listened back while you were talking just now. Let's just listen back on YouTube to a little bit of it. And I cut in and out for a second. But thank the Lord for actually having a legit mic and mixer.
Right.
I knew I kept it around for some reason.
Oh yeah. Keep it around for one reason or another, and works out perfectly. So week 10 is in the books for 8-man football. Let's go ahead and recap all the games that we were not at as well as the ones we were at. We start with Ezel Harding was originally going to play the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights at home, but the Knights from Jackson, Tennessee chose to forfeit that game after having a win against the Bowling Green Warriors at home on senior night. And James, as far as we've heard, so Coach Blankenship and company, they are not going to reschedule their game against the Providence Christian Academy Lions from earlier in the season that they ended up canceling due to a COVID-19 scare. And it's unfortunate that they're canceling that game as well as Ezel Harding. Likely they are going to cancel their game at home against Freedom Cowboys. But it's unfortunate for Sacred Heart, and especially they've just been riddled with injuries. They've had a lot of issues on the injury side and sickness side and everything that's been going on. So Sacred Heart, a tough situation for them. Technically a forfeit win for Ezel Harding, but you hate it for any school to go through a forfeit situation like that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that, I think Freedom wouldn't have absolutely crushed Sacred Heart because Freedom is a very good football team at times. I absolutely hate that they're not rescheduling with Providence. I think that would be a fantastic game, just like Sacred Heart Bowling Green was. The kids on that team, I don't know where their heads at right now. Whether or not they want another football game. Maybe coach is in a situation where the guys they're done. They've packed it in, and they had their one good game against Bowling Green. They've gotten senior afternoon out of the way. They're just ready to be done. You got to wonder how the mindset is down in Jackson. But for Ezel Harding, you hate it for them too, losing a little warm up game, and now I know they had an inter squad scrimmage on Friday night, but that's not the same as having a live game.
No.
Um, and so, going into the game with Lancaster, where Lancaster was able to, really build a lot of momentum, get their twos some playing time. You got to wonder if that plays a factor into Friday night.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. Maybe it has an effect for them going next week. As it stands right now, Sacred Heart is set to collide with the Freedom Cowboys at home, but likely that game will be canceled based on what we've heard. But if it still happens, then that'll be an interesting game between Sacred Heart and Coach Blankenship and company, as well as Coach Collins and company. Now, as for Ezel Harding, they had an inter-squad scrimmage on Friday night, but they've got a tough matchup next week as they battle for the right to host a playoff game in the first round as they collide with the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights. Before we get into the rest of the games that we cover, James, you and I mentioned this in the game we covered between Christian Community and Lighthouse. You were watching on your phone. You were watching the live stream from BP1 Sportsnet. Shout out to those guys in that crew. But Ezekiel Academy getting upset 27-26 in their game against Lighthouse Homeschool. And you could give us an update on the air about the situation for the ASCS championship game and, what happened with Ezekiel Academy in that game.
Well, I think it's ACSC,
ACSC.
but it was obviously a big matchup going in. Evangel had beat Lighthouse, but that was the only loss Lighthouse had taken all year, and of course Ezekiel beat Evangel. But I believe it was maybe the second drive. Ezekiel's quarterback went down, and that obviously always takes a toll on your team, and so they're kind of scrambling to get going. Their backup was hurt as well, so they had to plug a wide receiver into the quarterback position to make that work. We've never seen that have to happen up here, but it's a tough situation. But obviously for Lighthouse, Ezekiel was up 26-20. Lighthouse went on a game-winning drive, and Ezekiel just couldn't answer there in the last minute or so. So now it's a three-way tie, obviously, and there's a fourth team in that conference, East Coast Homeschool. They lost to all three of those teams. So it's a three-way tie, and their tiebreaker is actually point differential. And
imagine that.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that's the end-all tiebreaker. The Evangel Lightning, for the first time, and I apologize, I'm gonna have to look it up because I want to know when the last time they didn't play in the state championship was, but they will not be participating in the state championship game. It will be Ezekiel Academy and Lighthouse Homeschool, and and that'll be in 2 weeks. They used to have a first round of the playoffs. They don't have it anymore. So both these teams have 2 weeks to get ready for each other, and I see it being a good game, to be honest. If Coach Wilson was smart, he would try to get in touch with, talk to Coach Tim Smith, which I know they talk on a regular basis, but try to find out kind of somewhat what are the things that Coach Smith did with moving Jet Lodge to quarterback when Eli Whitfield was hurt. Maybe even reach out to some coaches up here, Coach McGee, with him having to move Jamari Liddell to quarterback this year from wide receiver to replace Derek Griffin. Trying to think of other prominent situations where receiver. I mean, a couple years ago, you had David Black get hurt, and so Jake Rabelski, who was had to step into quarterback. I don't remember if he was a wide receiver. He might have still been a quarterback, so that might not be applicable. But there's been other situations where wide receivers have had to come in and play quarterback. And so, he definitely needs to reach out and in my opinion, reach out and just, kind of pick their brain a little bit and try to get some ideas. But should be a good one in a couple weeks down in Alabama. I believe they play in Pinson, Alabama, just outside of Birmingham. So not a long drive, and it should be on Friday, November 5th is when they usually do their championship game.
Be interesting to see how Ezekiel Academy and Lighthouse Homeschool collide. And like you mentioned, it's the first time in a long time that the Evangel Christian School Lightning will not be in their state championship. And unfortunate for Tim Smith and company, but as he mentioned to us many times, his guys are young. He lost a lot of seniors from last year going forward to this year. So so understandable, and I'm sure they'll just bounce right back next year. All right, in terms of the Alabama team that we do cover, the Freedom Cowboys got the win against East Coast Homeschool and a 63-36 matchup. And for Coach Kyle Collins and company, after taking a loss to the Evangel Christian School Lightning, it's one of those matchups they needed a win to get motivation behind them, and with the Freedom Cowboys sights likely set for the national tournament in Panama City Beach, the Freedom Cowboys just building some more momentum as they get the path down to Florida, James.
Well, and here's the thing: I don't think they go just solely because of how their season has gone. I mean, they're kind of they're a 500 team. But again, if Sacred Heart backs out of their game, they're another team that they've got 2 weeks to wait, and then they've got Cincy Heat on November 5th, I believe.
Yep.
They host the Independence Bowl. So, they'll have some time to kind of get ready for that, and then, they may decide to call it after that, especially depending on how that game goes. Having been beat by the Heat 2 times already this season, if they decide to – well, no, they only played them once, but they did get beat pretty solidly. So if they play the Heat close or maybe even beat them, maybe a possibility at that point. But, based off of how the game went earlier this season, there may be a situation where they just decide, look, you know what, this isn't the year to make that trip. But we'll have to see what Coach Collins and company decide to do.
Yeah, we'll see if Coach Collins' company decides to head down to Panama City Beach. But if they do not, then they at least have they currently on the schedule have their game against the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights to look forward to. But if that doesn't happen, they have a week's rest until they collide with the Tennessee Heat at home for the Independence Bowl. Back to Tennessee as the South Haven Christian School Patriots continue their undefeated streak as they head down to Fayetteville in a game that was originally scheduled to be in Springfield, but due to the inability to move their game to Saturday or Thursday for the storms that went through Tennessee, the Patriots decided to swap the game down to Fayetteville so they could still have it on Friday night. 48-24 the final score, and it's tough after the previous week's loss to the Ezel Harding Eagles at home and being knocked out of the Division I playoffs. It's tough for the players of Riverside for them to press on and feel motivated to play for something. I mean, yes, they're in the Division II. They're in the Division II championship, but at least with talking with some of the players, it doesn't seem like that much of a motivation because they had their prizes set on the actual state championship. But it is really interesting for South Haven because with Riverside, who was 86-66, the final score, not as high scoring of a game as they were accustomed to last week. James?
I apologize. I was actually looking at the Evangel situation, trying to figure out the championship. But yeah, I mean, it's you lose a heartbreaker like that with Ezel Harding, where you put everything on the line, your heart and soul, and it's still not enough. And we've said it from day one. You can do a Division II in basketball, you can do it in volleyball, you can do it in any other sport you want. That's fine. Take your pick. Football is a completely different beast. Okay, you put so much into a season that it's not. When a season goes a certain way, you don't want to just go play for a game where it's you and the other team that didn't make the playoffs. Like, that's so. I know that the meaning behind it and the intent behind it is, hey, give them another game, give them an opportunity to play for something, blah blah blah. I get it. This isn't it, Chief. It ain't it, Chief. This is it. It's I hate to say it, it's demoralizing. It's like, oh, we're gonna go play the other team that didn't make the playoffs. That, by the way, yeah, we whooped them. it's so, and that's if you're Riverside. If you're Classical, you've already had a ton of injuries this year, and all of a sudden you're going to get asked to go play a team. You're going to be asked to potentially sit for 3 weeks and then go play a team that whooped you earlier in the year in a meaningless game. It is. I'm on the record. It's meaningless. Just it's so insane. It's an insane situation.
Producer Jack, you got anything?
Oh, disregard.
All right, I thought you had something there, but
Oh, come on, give your thoughts, producer Jack.
Nah, he's just mentioning your mic's starting to crackle again. I'm sure you'll get it adjusted as we move along, but
Is it?
yeah, it's been crackling during your segment, unfortunately, but the joys of technology. So, congratulations to the South Haven Patriots, who got the victory on the road, especially in those sudden game time circumstances, because you have to imagine that affects the psychology of a player when they're set for a home game, set in their mindset, and then they have to travel down several hours away. It has to affect their mindset for sure. But congratulations to South Haven for still getting the win done, even under the circumstances. They have their final home game of the regular season as they host the Franklin Classical School Knights before they head into a bye week for the postseason. And as for Riverside Christian, well, they have so the news right now is there's no official confirmation on this yet, but Riverside Christian was set to host their game against Providence Christian, but because of Sacred Heart dropping their game earlier in the year against Providence, the Lions could not have a senior night for their players. So Providence is currently in talks right now to move their game from Riverside to Murfreesboro so that they can honor their seniors and have a senior night and everything. And as far as we heard, it's just pending clearance of Providence's headmaster, which Riverside is perfectly fine with that. And it's before we get into the next game, I mean, it's a good sign there when you have a school that's willing to, yes, you get one less home game for yourself, but it at least gives your opponent another senior night. So kudos to Riverside and company for allowing that to potentially come to full fruition. As for the game that we were at, the only other game that we're not discussing it as much because it was a junior varsity game, but the Bowling Green Warriors did host the Tennessee Heat on Thursday, and we don't have a final score on that because it was a junior varsity game. Anything on that, James?
Well, before you get to that, I did want to add something that I did. I was looking at the Evangel situation. So with the South Haven Riverside game Friday night, I do know that Manny Ding didn't play a whole lot. Just kind of resting him up a little bit. There wasn't a big deal. It wouldn't have been a big deal if South Haven would have lost Friday, but just the fact that they were able to win that ball game the way they did and play a lot of their depth, they seem to be a deeper team than they showed. Now, the first game of the season, it didn't seem that way because as soon as Manny wore out, they started to go downhill, and FCA was able to capture that and take advantage of that. So that remains to be seen. But it shows the strength that at least maybe over the season, and with some of these blowout games and some of the backups being able to get in and get a little confidence, get a little playing time under their belt. Maybe they've been able to really expand their abilities. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on down the road, but it'll be interesting.
Christian community got it done at May Flanders Field. The final score 34-14. The Colts will host a playoff game for the fourth straight season. And although it will not be with a first round bye or just hosting a playoff game and then heading straight to the championship, it's still for Jordan Flanders and company an incredible feat for them for the fourth straight year to host a playoff game. And it's dangerous whenever you're playing at May Flanders Field. That home field advantage really does get several teams. And for Lighthouse Christian, it's they had good moments. They had the chance to win the game multiple times. It's just that it's just in part to that Christian community defense they couldn't step up. And for Coach Hollis and company, it's unfortunate that they took the loss, but at least for now, at least going into next year, they especially with taking the losses that they did going into next year, they'll be able to improve and have more things to build off of going into 2021. But congratulations to the Colts on the win, James.
Yeah, and kind of a slow start for Christian community. Lighthouse was able to really they were able to jump out in front and take an 8-0 lead. And as soon as T got a little shaken up, maybe I'm wrong. To me, it looked like he wasn't the same player, and that kind of affected them the rest of the game. They weren't able to run the ball like they were on that first drive. But they do have a lot of upside, and of course, we've mentioned it. Christian Sharp was out for the year with a shoulder situation, so. You guys still hear me?
Now we can.
Bump my mixer. Why can't I hear myself though? Is the question. Oh well. But it you hate it for Lighthouse, but there's years that you have to take your lumps. And for Christian community, they really got it going. With Will Adams on the sidelines with an injury, Aaron Malham has really stepped up and been been the ball carrier that they need and been that number one guy, and he's done a great job. They also got I believe it's Poulin as their second string running back, and they've done a good job developing some depth. That'll be an advantage in the postseason. Drew Belcher looked good at quarterback. Miles Bernard is really that's their guy. That's their target. In terms of the passing game and the defense, the defense wasn't letting Lighthouse run the ball a whole lot Friday night. So also, just an ugly games in terms of the weather, the rain. The situation wasn't ideal. You had to be able to run the ball, and near the end of the game, you were able to throw the ball around. There was one really crazy catch, but they were able to throw the ball around a little bit at the end. But the majority of the time, you had to be able to run the football, and Lighthouse just wasn't able to do that. And that was kind of one of the situations. By the way, going back to just touching on the Evangel thing real quick, I've gone back to 2010 on Max Preps, and if Max Preps is correct, it looks like they've been in the championship game every year, and they've only lost it maybe twice, maybe. In the recent years, though, at least up until 2015, they've won it every year, and they've been playing Ezekiel. So a big rivalry there, and it's historic this year for Evangel not to be in the championship.
Historic there for sure. Congratulations to Christian community. They will host a playoff game in the first round, either against Teasdale Harding or Lancaster Christian. And at least for now, they travel down to Jim Warren Park to collide with the Franklin Christian Academy Falcons again. A potential preview of the 2020 MTAC Championship because of both of those teams being in the postseason. And as for Lighthouse Christian School, they are the number 3 seed. They will be traveling either to Teasdale Harding or Lancaster Christian in the first round. But for now, they have a game on the road on a Halloween afternoon as they collide with the Bowling Green Warriors. For the game that we were not at on Saturday, that was delayed from Friday to Saturday due to the storms, Franklin Christian Academy in the Battle of Franklin against their rivals, the Franklin Classical School Knights, a shutout. 40-0. Tim Johnson and company got the job done. And it's a huge part of it, James, is the issue with the injuries that Franklin Classical has endured, with a starting quarterback being out, another guy, Clay Lott, being out for the year, and several other guys still bruised and banged up. It's tough for Isaiah Austin and company. They've gotten 2 wins under their belt with win against Bowling Green and against Providence, but at least for now, they're in the same situation kind of as Riverside. They're out of the Division I playoffs. Lacking the motivation to be able to go and continue to that Division II game, but for the Franklin Christian and company, they remain undefeated on the season, and their next game against Christian Community, they could easily win, but it's at least for now. Congratulations to, after losing last year's Battle of Franklin, congratulations to Franklin Christian on taking back the winning streak for the Battle of Franklin.
There's one of my pet peeves, Spencer. It is not undefeated until the end of something.
You
It's
can say
unbeaten.
undefeated or unbeaten. They're synonyms. It
No,
doesn't
it's
matter.
no, they're not.
Doesn't
They're not.
matter.
They are unbeaten up until this point. Anyways, yeah, I mean their incredible season just keeps going. They've got a great coaching staff. They've got players who have really stepped up across the board. And last night rather was no exception. Big one coming up with CCS. You know that they've kind of been they've gone through the ringer this season. Not the ringer, but they played Lancaster, handled Lancaster pretty much. Handled Ezel Harding, had to come back against South Haven. So they have played a couple good teams. They've played some playoff teams. It hasn't been all just gimmies. But obviously they haven't played the Tennessee Heat, so that would be another good test for them at some point. But I don't see it happening. But yeah, I mean just a great season for them. And hey, you know what? If they're able to do it and go into the playoffs unbeaten, kudos to them. No, I've got no hard feelings whatsoever. I love that those kids are putting in the work and getting rewarded, and love to see the coaching staff doing well. Love Shaka Hill to death, and just after a couple of years of FCA struggling, it's so good to see Coach Hill be able to kind of hit another mountaintop after a couple of years.
Looking in the dictionary, undefeated, not having been defeated, and unbeaten, not defeated or never defeated. So you can use either of those in that case. And congratulations to Franklin Christian on getting the win in the Battle of Franklin as the Falcons.
Producer Jack, what's your take?
What's your take, Producer Jack?
Oh, I get to have a take here.
Well, I mean, we could wait for the sound off, but what do you got?
Okay, yeah, do it during sound off.
No. I'll just say straight up. I agree with James.
All right.
I agree with James.
All right, fair enough.
That's 2 for 2 in the last 2 weeks.
There's a straight bias apparently in the studio.
Straight bias, yeah. Anyways,
there's a little bit. Hi, everyone loves the big cuddly teddy bear. Okay, just gonna say that.
Congratulations to the Falcons on getting the victory in the Battle of Franklin. They host Christian Community next week, and then for Franklin Classical School, they travel up to Springfield to collide with the South Haven Patriots. As for the game we were at, Lancaster Christian on their senior night, they collided with the Providence Christian Academy Lions, 45-6 the final score, and Providence did not get their touchdown until the fourth quarter, as that Lancaster defense just completely shut down Providence's offensive game. But what's interesting about it as well is that we talked to Coach Bragg post-game, and he mentioned it was the first time this entire season he felt like his guys played a complete game. It's the first time he felt like they had played all 4 quarters. And especially with taking a tough loss at Franklin Christian last year, it's one of those situations where they definitely needed it for motivation going into the postseason and building off of that momentum going on the road to Ezel Harding next week. But congratulations to Lancaster Christian on getting the victory on senior night, James.
Yeah, and especially after that game with FCA, and really the stretch they went down. Ever since playing Sacred Heart, you had the comeback win that they had to get against Riverside, taking the loss to Christian Community, come back against FCS and kind of hold them off. A tough loss to FCA. I mean, it's been a ringer of a stretch. And, last night I didn't see a whole lot of flaws in them. I talked pregame a little bit about the fact that, everyone's talking about, maybe they're having a down year, or, maybe Deuce isn't as good as everyone thought he was. That's not the case in my opinion. He's still a great player. He's been in for 2 years, so maybe teams are picking up on some tendencies and kind of figuring it out. But he's still just as good as he was, and everyone is allowed to have a couple bad games, and honestly, that's what he's had. That whole team has had a couple bad games. You mentioned it. Coach Bragg said, "Hey, look, in previous games, we didn't have a complete game, and last night they showed up and showed out. There were not a lot of weaknesses. I saw there weren't a lot of weaknesses for Providence to take advantage of. So, just for the record, I am a Deuce Bragg fan. I love watching the young men play. Just want to get that out there. but yeah, I mean, not a lot of mistakes to be made for Lancaster, and for Providence. Again, you're in a year, take your lumps, pack it up, say, look, we're losing 4 seniors, but we're only losing 4 seniors. There's a lot of experience coming back, a lot of guys who had never played a down of tackle football in their life before this year, and now you've got a whole bunch of guys coming back with some experience.
It's the same situation for Providence Christian. They got a few seniors that they're graduating, but they got only I think 4 or 5 juniors coming up to seniors next year. So a lot of youth with Providence Christian as well.
That's what I just said.
A lot of youth with Providence Christian and Lancaster graduating only a few. They got about 5, 6 seniors on their team, so it's a situation with both of them that the amount of seniors they're graduating are good leadership for their underclassmen to look up to. And we saw it last night with trying to give some of their sophomores a touchdown and get them into the end zone. Couldn't quite get there towards the end, but they gave them reps nonetheless.
And I'll be honest, this year's Providence team actually kind of reminds me of a Franklin Christian the last couple of years, specifically maybe last year. And maybe it's just my opinion, but awesome seniors, some good seniors, but they also had a lot of guys that they were still developing. And all of a sudden now they're able to explode and, pop on the scene and have an undefeated season. I'm going on the record now. You better watch out for Providence next year. I'm just going to say that right now.
And that's what Coach Ferguson said in the postgame to Bragg and the rest of the players of that. If there's a time for you to beat us, it's going to be now. So we'll see how Providence goes into the next few years. But congratulations, Lancaster Christian, with the W. They only have a 6-day rest before they head up to Antioch to collide with the ESL Harding Christian School Eagles. And for Providence Christian, they are in the process of, they've got their final game set right now to be at Riverside Christian, but they're in the process of moving that back up to Murfreesboro so they can pick up a game and have senior night for their seniors. And
I love Coach Ferguson calling a shot their post game and saying, hey, look, if you're going to whoop up on us, go ahead and get it out the way, because it ain't going to happen for long.
All right, let's go ahead and pull up the updated playoff bracket for the Tennessee State Independent Athletic Association, and here's what we're looking at. You can see the acronyms have changed. Playoff berth is notated for Lancaster and ESL Harding, but the playoff seed is locked in for Franklin Christian, South Haven, Christian Community, and Lighthouse Christian School. So the playoff bracket finalizing on Friday night, depending on who wins that matchup between the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights and the ESL Harding Christian School Eagles. And everything a little bit more clear. So we know Christian Community is going to host a game. We know Lighthouse is going to travel for the postseason, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. But in terms of the Division II playoff game, the Division II championship between Riverside Christian Academy and the Franklin Classical School Knights, from the discussions that I have had, there is no decision that has been made yet about if they are going to move up the Division II championship to the first weekend of November instead of giving both of those teams 3 weeks of rest. But as far as I'm aware, with the sources I have talked to, they are leaning towards still having that game before the Division I championship on Saturday, November 21st. And if that's the case, then you're giving 3 weeks of rest to teams that have losing records in their division and losing records on the season altogether, which you can do with that information what you will. But that game would be set before the Division I championship game to be hosted at Christian Community School. So James, it's just I'll let you take the hot takes on it on what you called a meaningless game.
It is, and I will say, in the defense of the powers that be making the decision, maybe they're coming at it from maybe 3 weeks will let these teams rest up a little bit. Maybe a couple of these injuries won't be as severe. But for a conference that has a bunch of teams that care a lot about basketball, how are you going to do this when the players on these two teams that play basketball could just go ahead and go start practicing? Like, don't hold the young men back. it's so crazy. And then I'm going to go out there and say it. If the game was hosted at Riverside or Classical, I think the decision would be a little bit easier. But of course, it's going to be hosted at Christian Community before the championship, and I'm sure, despite the two teams maybe either not wanting to play in it or not being even able to play in it, I'm sure they don't want to lose that game and don't want to lose that revenue, and that's wrong. You can't be putting that above the kids and above what's best for the players. I'm not saying they are by any means. I'm just saying that's something you have to take into account in that decision making process. It's important. If you're really going to put the kids first, let's truly put the kids first and not Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, it's about putting stuff for the kids first, and it'll be interesting to see what they decide. I'll give updates on my Twitter, and Amen Extreme will get those retweeted if we get any official updates. But at least what it's looking like, it's going to be a Division II championship hosted before the Division I at Christian Community.
Boy, I've really rubbed off on you with the shameless plug there, Spence. I like it. I like it a lot.
I mean, I'm just stating facts here. It's not even a shameless plug. It's just so people know where the updates come first. So.
Well, I mean, it can be a shame. There should be no shame, and it's a plug. Hey, go follow. Okay, fine, I'll do it. Hey, go follow Spencer on Twitter for breaking news. There you go.
No.
I'll say it. There you go.
Jack, of course, says no.
Absolutely not.
Do what?
Jack just
Absolutely not.
he's saying no. Don't follow me.
Well, then, I mean, I guess we could just add that to the list of people that producer Jack should follow and doesn't. I've looked at his followers list. It's not the most stellar, but it's okay. I mean,
On
he
Twitter?
is a Brown
On what? On which social media?
on Twitter.
I follow a ton of people on Twitter. What are you talking about?
Well, you're also a Cleveland Browns fan, so I mean,
yeah, I follow the best Cleveland Browns quarterback of all time, Bernie Kosar. He actually follows me. I'm not kidding. You can actually look.
There's no way.
No,
I'm verifying. I'm verifying
no,
this
go
right
ahead.
now.
Bernie Kosar follows me on Twitter.
Okay, fine. Tell the story of how that came about.
Baker Mayfield slander. And that's the end of the story, ladies and gentlemen.
Right now?
No, I'm not here. Let me pull it up. Watch him actually have unfollowed me because I said that.
I would die. Okay, hang on.
At least
we're
last
looking
time I
for
checked,
Brent.
he did. Hold on. Let me just search
No,
online.
I bet you he doesn't.
All right. Well, we do need to move
I'm
on.
screenshotting it. Told you.
He still follows.
I'm sending in our group chat right now. Hold up.
Put it in our group chat.
Okay. That's fine.
Picker didn't happen.
Okay, I'm sending it.
I mean,
Tell me when y'all get it.
I'm looking.
I
still don't see
I'm
it.
waiting for it.
Yeah, it's
I'm waiting
currently
for it.
sitting at the moment.
Okay, I see it. All right. I back up. Sir. You put me wrong on that one.
All right. Well, that's the
Actually,
latest.
Extremely dope.
No pun intended. That's the latest on the playoff bracket for the TSIAA, and we'll give you updates as we know them as they come along. All right, time to welcome in our special guest. We make sure to go on his show at least each of us go on once a year, and we're proud to have him this time on the show this time of year, especially going into the postseason. We have the man from RFCC Lebanon himself, the one who is currently I believe 2 games ahead of James in the weekly picked games, Jonathan the Jet Thompson. Jonathan, thanks for taking the time to come on the show. You, as far as I'm aware, you have never led in the regular season on the pick'ems. Is that going to your head at this point, or are you staying cool?
Well, it's one game up, actually. It's been one game up for the past couple of weeks, and hopefully if I make a bold prediction this week and hit it, of course my bold prediction pay off this past week. But I don't have to pay for that belt that James is going to
see. I thought it was 2 because I knew you were ahead by 1. I picked Classical, you picked Christian last night, and then you picked Providence, I picked Lancaster. So I gained 1 on you there, and then you gained 1 on me with the Battle of Franklin. So I think you are 2 up.
No, I picked Providence. So, and you picked you picked Lancaster. So
Yeah, but I'm talking about
a wash on the
battle.
week.
I'm talking about the Battle of Franklin, though. Who did you pick? Because I picked Classical.
I picked Christian. So,
Okay, so yeah, you got the win on that one.
and then you got the win last night. So it's a wash for the week.
Oh,
So,
you're right. Good point. Good point.
30-12 plays 29-13.
Wait, what's the standing again?
I'm at 30-12. You're at 29-13.
All right, good deal.
And amazing
Little
to
competition
think,
coming
amazing
out
to
of the
think
season.
how James last year he only missed out on 10 games the entire season, and now he's already 3 past that.
I mean, it is only 3 though, and it is Corona season, and
Right,
you know, it's tough, you know, especially with no jamboree to watch. Because usually I make the picks after the jamboree too, so I at least have something to base it off of.
Right. Yeah, you have something based off. So the Jet. Tell me, my friend. So you also follow around and you do week by week predictions as opposed to James, who does preseason picks and everything. So with what you've seen around the conference this year, especially with the age of coronavirus and everything that's been going down, tell me some of the things that tell me what are some of the things that you have seen go around in 8-man football that's different from previous years, and some of the highlights around the conference from the teams that you've covered.
Well, I follow the middle school football a lot. I save middle school football as a segment on my show each week because if you have a strong middle school program, those next few years, that varsity program is going to be strong. And so to see a few less middle school teams because they had to combine those middle schoolers into varsity and make a 6 through 12 team instead of 9 through 12. So there still was some pretty good middle school action going on around 8-man football. And then, of course, you mentioned it the other day, James, with Christian Community. You talked about their championship win last season over FCA, and then they're going to rematch from what you told me this week, if I'm correct.
Yes, I believe it is Tuesday night. Spence, you want to back me up?
Yeah,
on
I
that?
was about to ask that. So Tuesday night, Christian Community is the number 1 seed. They host Franklin Christian Academy in the middle school championship game, and this is the same matchup as last year. And with both these teams, they're of course Franklin Christian, led by the one of the former punters for the Tennessee Titans, and Christian Community. They were led by Ben Pugh, but he transferred schools. I'm not sure who the head coach is for the middle school program now for Christian Community, but what do you think?
I think it's a joint effort, if I'm not mistaken, or one of them may be the head and the assistant, or however it goes. I know ex championship winner Colton Rollins and Nathaniel Rowley are involved with the staff, but I don't know that either one of them are the head coach or what their role in is, but I do know they're involved with it.
But regardless, so Jonathan, tell me, what do you think about that matchup between Christian Community and FCA for the second year in a row? With of course Providence being ineligible, even though they're 5-0 on the year for their middle school. What do you think about that matchup heading into Tuesday?
Yeah, it's a shame, like you mentioned, that we don't get to see Providence go for their first ever championship in football, so to speak. But this game's going to be pretty good. Franklin Christian is, when they've won their games this season, they've held their opponents to, let's see, let me pull up my results here. All right, so they held South Haven to 8, the Falcons did, and they held Classical to 8 as well. And the only loss other than Providence, they held Providence to 14. And Christian Community got them, but just like the varsity program for Franklin Christian, the middle school program has played some pretty solid defense this year. And Christian Community, on the other hand, of course, they had their way with Ezel. They narrowly lost to Providence. That first game of the season, Christian Community and Providence, that was really the highlight of the middle school season, in my opinion, because going into the season, you think about, is Christian Community finally going to give way to somebody? Because those Colts, they've had the best record in middle school football for almost a decade now.
Yeah, the Christian community system has been fairly. The Christian community system, it's just that the whole thing with Flanders and holding a high standard and everything. There's a reason why they've had a dynasty in both middle school and high school football, and it's an attribute to the coaching staff at Christian community. But James, you had something.
So are you predicting the middle school championship?
Hey, if you want it added to the standings, go right ahead.
Well, with you being the expert on it, I'll give you the first choice, and you can make the first pick, and then I'll just take the opposite.
Now, of course, Christian Community, they're coming off their win over South Haven this past week. You were at that game. What was the final of that game again?
I stopped by for a couple minutes. I was busy here in town, but I was kind of passing through, so I swung by for a second. The last thing I saw in the fourth quarter, it was 24-8.
24-8. So just like the Battle of Franklin Middle School score from the previous week.
That was the final. Saying that's what it was when I came through.
And then FCA, like I said, they beat Classical by that same amount. So they're both coming off of pretty good wins. The Falcons and the Colts are. Sounds like an NFL matchup, doesn't it?
Sounds like it's going to be an interesting matchup on Tuesday. And at this point, we've not been commissioned or asked to do the middle school championship. I mean, we could possibly do it, but we haven't been reached out to as we were last year.
I'm sure the Falcons Broadcasting Network has it under control.
Yeah, if they do, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm sure they've got it.
Yeah, if they got it, Will Shipman is fantastic with what he does, and if they've got it, they got it. We just haven't been asked like we were last year. Otherwise, we would have been covering it. I didn't even know until Friday night there was a middle school championship when it was mentioned to me in a conversation. But in the words of James Shannon, I digress.
I think Christian Community will retain their title.
I digress is my phrase, Spencer.
Why do you think I said in the words of James Shannon? I gave you credit for it.
All right, that's true. Okay. All right, I'll give you that.
That's why I gave you credit for it.
So if Jonathan's taking Christian Community, I guess I'm taking Franklin Christian.
You're doing that just so you can have an opposite pick of him? Come on, man.
I literally said that a second ago. I said, okay, since you're the expert, you pick who you think, and I'll just take the opposite.
He actually has to at this point.
That is true. He's got to take it to try and get a game up on you, or stay in the running and then get you in the playoffs.
Oh, I like it. Let's do. All right. So there you go.
All right, so you guys taking opposite picks on the middle school game. But in terms of varsity football, Jonathan, the playoff bracket, of course, we showed it on the screen a second ago, and the matchups that we're looking at, they're going to be – it's going to be a tough road to the championship for every team that's in there. Not necessarily a prediction, but what are your thoughts on the finalized teams that are going to be in the 2020 TSIAA playoffs?
Yeah, I say that Franklin Christian definitely has a leg up on everybody. Christian Community and Ezel Harding, they finally turned the corner after starting out slow. And so look for those two teams to be some dark horses. And if you really want a long shot, you would go with a Lighthouse. You never know. Who knows what could happen? That 6 seed, so to speak, Lighthouse could run all the way through if they all go like Popeye and eat their spinach before their playoff games.
Well, and Lighthouse could be the dark horse. My dark horse is Ezel Harding, and I said it last week. If Liddell stays healthy, they're you can't count them out. Coach McGee's got so much experience. He's got a talented staff, and they've got guys like Alex Valbuena who anchor down the trench. That's my dark horse. I hate the Riverside's knocked out because I would probably pick Riverside as my dark horse, but I think Ezel Harding is a team to keep an eye on, and if they end up going to Christian Community, I mean, you kind of have to take a look at it because, to be fair, in that game earlier this year, Liddell went out early in the game, and that's why Christian Community was able to kind of stifle that Ezel Harding defense, having to play the backup quarterback. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, Lisa's thoughts are both the playoffs and everything, and once those get finalized next week, we'll give our predictions on it and everything. But Jonathan, any closing thoughts before we head into our next segment?
Other than this is going to be an interesting week. I see at least 2 toss-ups. I'll probably decide literally at the last second.
So, Mr. Thompson, with you having the lead, obviously it is leader's choice. Would you like to make the picks first, or would you like to hear my pick and then base it off of mine?
In the words of good old Zach, who is mobile as well as yourself this week, I defer.
Do we have Zach up? Is Zach here?
Yeah, he's in the call. I don't know if he's active. Good. It is.
I'm
good
here. I'm here.
There he is. Yeah, it's
What's
good to
up,
hear your
boy?
voice, Zachary.
Oh, it's good.
What's up?
What's up, dude?
Nothing much. Just recovering still.
Mm-hmm. We're excited to have you back for the playoffs and everything. But Zachary, your thoughts on what Jonathan should do since he deferred?
I think you should actually go first since you have the lead. Show James who's boss.
Ooh.
I mean, obviously it's leader's choice, so Mr. Thompson wants me to pick first. Zach, would you like to pick before me, or would you like to also hear my pick, or would you like to hear Mr. Thompson's pick?
I'll go last. I'll go very last.
All right, there you go.
All right, so we'll handle the picks. Actually, before we get into the picks, usually we do sound off. Mr. Jack Elwig, do you have anything you want to get into for the sound off?
All right, I'm gonna make this very quick. But first, I gotta do my thing.
Okay, here's the.
Let's get into the sound off.
Yes.
I'll do it really quick. I'm gonna open this playoff bracket one more time. I actually just want to debrief about this playoff bracket. So with our defending champions, I was noticing, what do you guys think would be their ideal path? What do you think is the best case for them to get back to the championship? Like, where do you think would be the easiest matchups in order to?
Well, I guess the question he's asking, should they be number 2 seed or number 3 seed if they're wanting to get back to the state championship? And we'll start with James. We'll start with James if he there he is.
I'm here. My mistake. I was checking my levels on the broadcast.
You're all good, brother.
Okay, so which game are we picking first?
No, he's asking which is the ideal path for Ezel Hart. We're in the sound off segment, and he's asking.
I heard. I know we're in sound off. I just didn't. For some reason it cut out for a second.
Yeah, so we're not doing the games. He's asking what is the ideal path for Ezel Harding to get back to the state championship? Number 2 seed or number 3 seed?
Number 3 seed, and I mentioned a second ago. If they go to Christian Community, that's obviously a dangerous situation. If they host Lighthouse, and that's obviously it's going to be potentially an easier path for them. But at the same time, if they're able to go to CCS and beat them, then I think that's a even bigger confidence builder and momentum builder, shelf shifter. And then of course at that point it would be whether or not they're going to get whether or not they're going to go to FCA who handled them, or we could get an Ezel Harding stack matchups that we've never had. So it's interesting. If I'm Ezel Harding, I want Christian community. Just to be honest, I want the challenge, and I want to say, hey, you know what? We're going to handle our business. Now, if you're Lancaster, you beat Bowling Green last year pretty handily, and so folks said, well, going into Christian community, you didn't really have a challenge, and maybe that was part of the issue with that game. So you want the challenge as well. You want to prove everybody wrong by going to Christian community and winning. But for Ezel Harding, at the same time they could kind of have the same issue. If they beat Lighthouse, people could kind of write them off and say, well, Lighthouse is struggling this year. Of course you beat them. So yeah, if I'm Ezel Harding, I want to go to Christian community. And but of course, that's just my opinion. I'm kind of outside the bubble and not involved in it, but that's just my 2 cents.
And again, if Ezel Harding goes
in the
to
words of one of our favorite coaches,
if Ezel Harding goes to Christian community, then if they get the win, they would head to Franklin Christian to collide with them. If they're the number 2 seed and they beat Lighthouse, they would head up to the South Haven Patriots. So it depends on what they do in the first round and where they get placed. All right, Zachary, what do you think is the easier path for Ezel Harding in the playoffs?
I agree with James, honestly. If you can get past CCS, then all of a sudden it just opens that whole side of the bracket up. Of course, like you always want to be you always want to host your first round matchup, but if you can beat CCS, who I know you are talking about dark horses, they're my dark horse. CCS is my dark horse. But
Ooh,
if you
hey Zach, Jack's supposed to have hot takes here, sir. Okay.
That's my
not the
segment.
role.
well, y'all didn't ask me, so I'm gonna. Y'all didn't ask me, so I put in my opinion. It's my turn to talk, James. So.
Woo! He's already back, and he's getting sassy as ever.
He's like, oh boy, take 3 weeks off, and he's like, "What's your opinion, James?" It doesn't matter what your opinion is.
It doesn't matter.
Shove it up your candy rear end.
But yeah, I agree with James.
All right, and the Jet. Which do you think is is the more ideal path for Ezel Harding?
Well, I think they should take that 2 seed. They'll have a little warm-up game against Lighthouse, and then South Haven, they can just be ready to take on the task is stop Manny Dang.
Yeah, all right, short and sweet, unlike James. That's good shake there, the Jet.
Listen, just because I'm 6'1", 330 pounds does not mean I'm not short and sweet, sir.
I'm talking about your explanations.
Oh, okay. All right, bet.
All right. Well, now it's time for, unless you got anything else.
Oh, I was gonna say it's my segment. I'm not allowed to say.
Well, because you asked the questions there. I didn't know if you answered it. So
I was actually gonna agree with the whole go through the CCS bottom bracket in order to go through, because the thing is, if you're gonna play the Patriots as a second game, that's a hard second game to play. I mean, that's like basically, I mean, they're number 1 for a reason, obviously, but they're obviously championship contenders, no doubt about it, and they have plenty of talent on their roster. So it kind of brings me to it. Let's say they were to get that top bracket spot, they were to face Lighthouse, they were to face the Patriots and win against the Patriots. Let's say they were to face the Colts in the championship. You're telling me that's not a very hard way to go out? I mean, that's, and most likely that's how I kind of see things happening. I mean, that's just difficult.
And let me mention too, let's say you've got Jamari Liddell and you go into CCS and you lose Jamari in that game, even if you win that game, and then you go play South Haven and absolutely get beat, as opposed to you play Lighthouse and you lose Jamari Liddell and you beat Lighthouse and then you go play South Haven. If the end of your season is losing to FCA or South Haven, but your only playoff win you can choose between Christian Community and Lighthouse, I think you choose having beat Christian Community in the playoffs, even if you don't get further than that second round. I think in terms of building to next year, I think that's a bigger step for that program.
Talk about a chance to beat the dynasty and have kind of a Patriots Titans esque feel in the TSIAA, where in the first round they beat the. Now, of course, that situation was where the Patriots were defending Super Bowl champions. However, it's still keeping the dynasty from having a chance to go back to the state championship. That would be a motivational factor. But of course, Christian Community and Company, they you never know what Flanders can cook up in the playoffs. So it'll be a tough task for anyone who comes into May Flanders Field. And anything else you got there, Jack?
I'm just going to say this. Since we're mentioning dark horses and everything like that, I think we should all be on the lookout for
drum roll, please.
Lighthouse.
You think we should? What do they need to look out for?
Yeah, maybe if they had Christian Sharp.
That is true. If Christian Sharp were in there, that'd be a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. I mean,
they would have completely blown up my predictions.
Yeah, I always feel for teams that, because I feel like we're all blowing over them, and that's the definition of like a dark horse, a team that has potential and talent but gets blown over. I don't think they can do this. We always use these things as motivation, and we all hope. I mean, for Christ's sake, we just watched Ezekiel lose to a homeschool team. So you can't sit here and tell me Lighthouse can't possibly. I'm just saying.
Listen, public school boy. Listen. Okay? Listen. Those homeschoolers, seems to me like those homeschoolers from the Tennessee Heat just beat a public school team earlier this year, but I digress.
Listen here. I give full.
They destroyed them.
No, they did. The Tennessee Heat are nice. That's the thing. Ezekiel, we all have made that. We've all come to the same conclusion that Ezekiel is probably the best 8-man team that we've covered. We've agreed on that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you guys have any other opinions and throw them at me now, we can throw that on air. But it's crazy that a team like Ezekiel, who's clearly at the top, loses to a team. It's like we all picked Ezekiel last week. We didn't pick the homeschool team. We were thinking, no, this is gonna be a blowout. So that's what I'm saying. Watch out for Lighthouse because they have that potential to win games because they're here in the playoffs. But also everyone's underestimating them. So I don't think they're championship contenders, but I think they could really compete with some teams. And I mean, they could really, if they were to get a hot start, they could carry it into next game and then really start getting moves going.
Well, and again, everyone writes off 8-man football, but at the same time, that's why it's so hard to have a solid backup quarterback in 8-man without him playing another position on the field, more than likely. But it's tough whenever you don't have a good backup, and we've seen that all year. between Ezel Hart, Evangel lucked out by having an absolute beast like Jet Lodge. But even
Lancaster.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say Lancaster. I would throw Franklin Classical in there. Teams that haven't had a solid backup quarterback, and it's shown in their games.
To be fair, it is kind of hard to replace a guy like Deuce Bragg. To be completely honest, but like I get what you're saying. I completely agree with it. I mean, depth is a huge issue when it comes to 8-man football, and it's just something that's to point out about the nature of the business, I guess you could say. But whenever you do have depth, things do get scary, and you really are contenders.
All right. Well, that's I guess it ends sound off. So now it's time to get into the predictions. So for the first time this season, the Jet will be giving his picks first here on Extreme Radio. Prior to
he wanted to hear my picks first.
Okay, you made the decision there. He will be making his picks. But Jonathan, will you be making your picks here on the show after James gives his?
Yeah, I told him I would defer. So the order from what was established, me going in the middle, James going first, and the defer Mr. Zach going last.
All right.
Double defer.
Double defer, yes. All right, so that means
He defers in regulation and overtime.
yes. All right, you know what that means? That means for the first time this season, RFCC Lebanon's predictions will be given here on Extreme Radio prior to Tuesday. All right, follow along on your helmet schedules from top to bottom, everybody. It's time for us to go through Week 11, the final game of the regular season, the final week of regular season games before we get into the TSIAA Playoffs, the National Championship, and an amazing stretch that goes all the way down to December for the Rocky Top Sportsplex All-American Games. So let's get started with the games that we won't be at. We'll start with Christian Community at Franklin Christian. As I've mentioned a few times before, a potential preview of what we could see in the championship if everything goes according to plan for both teams. But for Christian Community, this is going to be a tough game that they have prior to going into the playoffs in the first round. And I'm sure when they originally scheduled this game, they thought, well, maybe we'll get into the first round. We'll have a week of rest in case there's any injuries or anything like that. But it's something heavy for Flanders and company to consider going into the postseason, is that there could be guys injured in this game, especially with the tough team and facing Franklin Christian with Tim Johnson and company. Nothing intentional, just from the intensity of the game. But for Tim Johnson and company, they are not looking to have any blemishes on their regular season. They're looking to have a completely clean season. The closest they came to that was in 2015 when they had their state championship run and lost to the Freedom Cowboys in Alabama, in Huntsville. So this matchup, James, it's you didn't predict either of these teams to go undefeated on the year. So between the Colts and the Falcons, who do you have first?
Boys, it was a tough start to the season for Christian Community. Just an absolute tough. They rebounded with 3 wins in a row. They took a step back with South Haven. Couple wins here in a row to kind of have a good situation here in Robertson County. A solid win Friday night by the boys up at CCS. But look, you know what? If I've learned anything this year, you don't write off FCA. Those boys are balling. They're rolling. If anyone's going to be able to shut down that CCS defense, in my opinion, with the team he has, it's going to be shocking. So, boys, I'm taking the home team. I'm taking Franklin Christian to beat Christian Community.
I think this one is pretty much Franklin Christian's to win. Franklin Christian, they've only held their teams that they played to 2 touchdowns or less pretty much the entire season. And I see this one going 40-14 the way of the Falcons.
Ooh. All right, Zachary.
Ooh, that's a blowout. James, I told you at the beginning of the year, didn't I? I said watch out for Christian Community towards the end of the year because their defense is special, right? Can you hear me?
I believe you did.
He did.
I did. So I'm gonna take CCS. I'm going with CCS. Because yes, FCA's offense is good, but I'm telling you, this is gonna be a hard-hitting football game. It's not gonna be one of those, high-flying offensive type of style. It's Christian Community is a slower paced game. So I think they slow down just enough, especially this week where they're gonna try and limit, potential injuries and everything. I don't think they sit anyone, but you could see them run play clock and stuff like that. So I'm gonna take CCS.
Lone wolf on this one, Zachary, as both James and the Jet take Franklin Christian to get it done at home. Next, we have the South Haven Patriots hosting the Franklin Classical School Knights in a game that, on paper, it looks like South Haven should have an easy win. But for Franklin Classical, even with the injuries, Coach Austin and company, they come to play in every one of their games that they have, as evident from their game 2 weeks ago against Providence Christian, of course, against FCA. They still have the injury bug and everything, but this is now, of course, James, we know you picked them undefeated, but as I always give you the chance to change your picks, South Haven hosting Classical in their final game of the regular season.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. Listen, after the loss to FCA, that really shouldn't have happened. The South Haven has pardon my. They've played pissed off all year, and it doesn't have to be just the Mandy Dang show. They proved that Friday. I said that earlier. They boys, they're on a roll. I'm taking South Haven Friday night.
Well, this one's going to be much closer than what some would probably expect. I think this being the last week of the regular season, Isaiah Austin is going to pull out all the stops, but I think they're going to come up just short. It won't be like that shootout at Riverside, but I think it's going to go South Haven's way, 42-34.
Zachary?
Okay. So I think, yeah, like James said, Classical always comes up and they show out and they play for Coach Austin, which is really good. But that's what you want to see in a younger coach. How can he get his guys ready to play, especially now when they're hit by the injury bug like they are? I've never seen something like that. It's crazy.
Mr. Thompson.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, Mr. Thompson with the cliffhanger. I thought he was gonna take Classical. I'm kind of disappointed.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. But from top to bottom, South Haven is one of, if not the best. It has one of, if not the best roster. And I think this, like Thompson said, might be a little closer than people expect. Because I wouldn't be surprised if you see South Haven go up a little bit early, and then try and rest some of their starters. But I'm still gonna take South Haven.
All right.
You can't rest starters too much, especially when you're gonna sit out for a week. You know,
It's true, but I mean, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I'm making that point.
Yeah, just making a point there of not resting him too much. Otherwise, you could have a potential of them getting a little bit too complacent. But we'll see how it goes on Friday. All you guys taking South Haven, and even though it's not confirmed on if this game is going to happen or not, we are still going to act as if it will. The Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights are set to host for the final game of 2020 for them. As they've mentioned, they are not going to pick up any other, or at least it seems they're not going to reschedule that game against Providence Christian. They will host the Freedom Cowboys on Friday night in Jackson. And for Coach Collins and company, they've had frustrations this year. They've had games that they could have easily won. They've also had situations where Collins has mentioned that there are easily correctable mistakes in every situation they've been put in. But it's one of those tough situations where Sacred Heart did get the win last week against Bowling Green. However, for the Freedom Cowboys, who knows? I mean, it depends on how they perform, but. James, with this competition, who you got?
Boys, if Sacred Heart was decide to forfeit their game to Freedom, it really wouldn't change the situation. Boys, I'm taking the Cowboys in this one, despite the travel. And unfortunately, I think if the game happens, life will imitate life. Tough one yesterday. Not that we didn't see, but. Yeah, life will imitate life. The boys from Alabama will pick it up.
Who you got?
All right,
you got?
So, like I said with the Classical game, this game is going to be tighter than I expected a few weeks ago because I saw that Senior Day game that Sacred Heart had. I really like what they put together. So, Freedom Cowboys, they started out strong, but they've been slipping here and there. They've been getting their wins over weaker teams, but losing to teams that are within their competition level. So I think Sacred Heart, they're finally getting to that competition level that the Cowboys are at, but they're going to come up just short, 36-22. Freedom Cowboys going to win.
Like you said, Spencer, Freedom throughout the year has gotten better every single time they've gone out there. And the mistakes they make that have cost them games, they're correctable mistakes. They're not mistakes that you're like, well, we're just out talented. And since they are a young team, you're gonna have that. But I'm still gonna take the Freedom Cowboys this one.
All right, looks like two taking the Freedom Cowboys and the Jet being the lone wolf on taking Sacred.
No, he took Freedom.
Sorry, reverse that. Everybody taking Freedom on that, but the Jet taking it with a closer game with Freedom. already covered Franklin Christian and Christian Community in the Southaven game. The other game that's going on, we'll just mention a little bit. I know James is already going to predict that they'll win this. There is the Memphis Nighthawks game as they host a home game against the Tennessee Heat, and it's an 11-man game. So we already know James predicted the Heat to go completely unbeaten on the year, and
it doesn't change, Spence. Tennessee Heat rolling with the Heat.
Yeah, it doesn't change for you. It doesn't change for you.
I wouldn't be so sure about just giving it to the Heat because didn't you see a few weeks ago that the Memphis Nighthawks picked up a few Shelby County kids who were basically locked out of their 2020 season?
I did, and I have done that. Just saying.
And the Nighthawks, they did pretty well in holding DCA 28-6. And the Tennessee Heat, they've been kind of wishy-washy in 11-man play this year. Of course, I think even Christian Community's middle school could beat Red Bowling Springs varsity. And then the Webb school,
That's actually probably true.
pulled out, but they didn't. I've got the Nighthawks in this one.
Zach, are you going to make a prediction on that 11-man game?
Yeah, I'll go with it. So what Tennessee Heat did at the beginning of the year, which is like why they lost to Webb and everything, is they started slow. They started picking stuff up in the second half. It almost cost them against Christian Community, the first game that we covered, but they were able to put together the second half. And I think since we covered them last against Sacred Heart and they did that complete game, they've really come out from the get-go every game, and they've played pretty well. I'm taking the Heat.
All right. We got Thompson being the lone wolf this time by taking the Memphis Nighthawks.
Ever since they took the to DCAA, they beat an 0-6, a 2-7, and a 3-6. So, yeah, it's
Hey.
an 11-man team playing or 8-man team playing 11-man game, but yeah.
Yeah, and I have them winning 42-34.
All right, so the other game going on, as it stands right now, it says it's Riverside hosting Providence, but likely that game will be moved up to Murfreesboro so that the Providence Lions have a senior night to honor their seniors and all. And for Riverside Christian, as we mentioned before, it looks like they are clocked out for the year, especially after that tough loss to Ezel Harding, but they've still got at least one more game to play. Technically, 2 more games to play with the Division II championship. And Providence Christian, after talking with Coach Ferguson after the game, that's their last game. They're going to let their guys go on to basketball and go into the swing of things for the rest of the school year. So with this matchup between the Knights and the Lions on likely senior night for Providence Christian, James, do you change your preseason pick or do you stick with your gut?
Well, first off, you don't know what my preseason pick is.
I mean, I do. You've talked about it before.
Have I?
Mm-hmm.
You have.
All right. What did I say it was?
Well, that's not our job to say.
It's not our job to say. It's yours.
Well, but I want to know. Anyways, listen.
You said it was going to be Riverside.
Well, then that proves that I didn't talk about it. Guys, play the game in Fayetteville. Play the game in Murfreesboro. Play it wherever you want. That's fine. Guess what? In the regular season, inaugural season encore for Providence Christian, they will pick up the win on Friday night against Riverside Christian.
Well, I took the Lions last week and got burned, so I don't want to make that mistake again. I'm taking Riverside 40-20. I think the Lions are going to do a little bit better offensively on senior night since those boys want to show up, but it's not going to be enough to beat Crutchery Zell and the gang.
Well, like we said multiple times, Ezel might be one of the best players in the league. Is one of the best players in the league. Riverside has that offense, but like you said, they've basically checked out. And Providence has played. They've gotten better every game as well. And to go in on someone's senior night and beat them is extremely tough. Because all the emotion and everything. And we saw Providence play really well against the FCA when their very first game of the year, and expect that energy level to be the same Friday night. And I think Providence pulls it out. I think they get their first win.
Well, James is going to be the lone wolf on this one. So you
No, I went Providence.
you would, excuse me. The Jet being the lone wolf and deciding not to take the choice of the Lions again. So
You just really want there to be a lone wolf.
yeah, there is one. There is one. There is one. There is one. Just paying attention to red zone a little bit too much is what's going on. But
Listen, after the game this afternoon, earlier today, just clock it out.
Hey, I mean,
we're clocked
Gostowski's
out.
the best player on the Steelers. So
No
Gostowski.
kidding. Bro.
You want to know who's really the best player on the
Hey, I'll
Steelers?
take his 8 points today.
You what?
Say that, Jack.
So you really want to know who the best player on the Steelers is? Benny Snell Jr. for stealing all the touchdowns from James Conner Day. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, the game we are going to be.
Hang on. Thompson said something about what'd you say about the game?
Y'all take Gostkowski's 8 points, even though it should be, let's see,
-8.
12.
Gostkowski
Yeah.
should literally lose all of his points -5 for that. I feel like if a kicker misses a game-winning field goal, I feel like you should just lose all your points. Because what's your job
Especially
as a
when
kicker?
they're down by 20. Gosh.
I
And then
just
they come back and it comes down to a field goal that is like he made a 51-yarder and yet like now he's got to make like a 40-something and
Oh, we knew he was gonna miss it. I knew he was gonna miss it.
Yeah.
That's
Unless
just-
especially after that after the intentional grounding call and everything, it's that they either get into much closer range or he's going to miss it.
well, I mean the whole thing. I think Zach said this on Twitter. If we were talking about it before, it was like the fact that Titans actually did battle back and make this a close game. Because first quarter, they had 1 total yard of offense, and they battled back and they
Yeah.
made that a really good game. So because I know a lot of people after that first quarter was like, "Is this your king? Is this your king?" And,
Yeah.
just I know everyone was trash talking Nashville, and then AJ Brown pops off a huge touchdown. And everyone's like, "Oh." And then
Yeah.
humbled
Hey,
on their
did King
couches.
Henry have 100 yards?
No, he didn't. He had 86, I think. If
Yeah,
I-
see, King Henry.
Oh,
has
so
100
it's still
yards.
intact. It's still
you-
intact.
Yeah. All right.
75. I apologize.
All right. Well, so the extreme game of the week is going to be drum roll, please. You can hear a little bit of drumming from the other sides of the waves there. All right. Ezell Harding and Lancaster were headed to Antioch for the first time this season, or just north of Antioch, technically Nashville, but just down the road. Just down the
No,
road
it's
from
technically
Lighthouse.
Antioch.
And, yeah, technically Antioch, close to that border, in Metro Davidson County. We'll be covering, for the second time this season, we'll be covering the Ezell Harding Christian School Eagles as they fight for the right to host a home playoff game as they collide with the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights on Friday night. And it's going to be nice to go back to the Eagles football field after having been there since the state championship in 2019. So
I
be good
wonder.
to see everybody.
I wonder if the 4 and 4 is still there with our logo.
Yes.
We're probably still on the edge of the field. Yeah, they got their they got that 4 and 4 thing. Hey, I mean, what's Ezell Harding's record right now?
So I was actually going to bring that up. Per my preseason prediction, and of course everyone knows what it is at this point.
Yeah,
because I don't
yeah.
deter. With my prediction being true, if it does, just for the record, that does put Ezell Harding at a 4 and 4. Just throwing that out there.
So he's got Lancaster winning it.
And also, I had them at 2, including Providence. I had them at 2 and 2 or 2 and 3 in the division. So they beat Franklin Classical. They lost to FCA, beat Providence. They did beat Riverside, but by losing to Lancaster, that will put them at 2 and 3.
2 and 3 in
I
the
love the
division. Yeah.
enthusiasm.
No, I'm sorry, 3 and 2. 3 and 2. Correction, 3 and 2. So I'll be one game off them. But they will be 4 and 4.
That's if your prediction comes true of but you want to give any elaboration on why Lancaster is going to get the win?
I just after last night, if I honestly I'm looking forward to seeing Liddell versus Bragg, but I think Lancaster gets it rolling. I think they get a little revenge. Ezell Harding came into Lancaster last year and got the win, and to grab the top seed. the higher seed, and I think Lancaster returns the favor this year.
Yeah, I got to agree on Lancaster. It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be somewhere like 46-36, and it's going to be like you said, a duel between those arms, Liddell's arm and Bragg's old Tannehill-like sidearm.
Zachary?
Okay, this is gonna be tough because I don't want to pick Lancaster and go all three and then all of us get it wrong. I don't want all of us get it wrong, but so last night Lancaster's offense finally found its rhythm. Well, they've been building up to it, but last night it really clicked. Look for that to keep going this week against Ezel Harding, and Ezel Harding with Liddell, their offense is just almost as good, if not as good, as Lancaster. So it's gonna be a really close game. It's gonna be down to the wire. But I think I am gonna go Ezel. I think I'm gonna go Ezel because it's a home game, correct?
Yep, it's at Ezel Harding.
Yes. Then I'm taking Ezel. Home field advantage, and this is huge for seeding too, correct?
Say it again.
This is huge for seeding too. I haven't been able to see the bracket.
Yep. Yes. Whoever wins this game hosts the first round playoff game, and the other team goes on the road to Christian Community.
And also, I want to see Lancaster versus CCS.
But can I add that they're 1-2 at home?
Okay. What is that?
If you don't count the Sacred Heart game, they're 1-2 at home. So just throwing that in there.
Okay, but I really want to see Deuce Bragg versus CCS's defense.
And on that
fair.
40-80 field because if Bragg is healthy, because that's part of the reason that the Christian Community won 18-12 was Bragg being in a boot.
Listen, I told y'all my my sound off. My very first
And
one that Deuce Bragg could beat that CCS team on a 40-80 field, and I was pretty close to getting there.
Hey, I don't know if y'all forgot, Deuce didn't play in that game.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's what I was saying too. That's part of the
Okay.
reason Christian Community won 18-12 is because Bragg was not in that game. That's what
For
we're
a guy
mentioning.
that's a producer, he sure does know what he's talking about.
And the conclusion of the regular season, the conclusion of the regular season for not just our broadcast season, but the conclusion of the regular season for any of the TSIAA teams, the Lighthouse Christian School Lions, before they have their playoff game in about 6-7 days' time, whoever they travel to, they'll know who they're traveling to after October 30th. But on Halloween afternoon, they travel up to the Bowling Green Warriors to collide with them in a game where Lighthouse, of course, they got a W. They got their win against Sacred Heart earlier in the year, but they're looking for their second W. Bowling Green still looking for their first win as well. Maybe a chance for them to get it at the Western Kentucky Intramural Sportsplex. And we'll be in the back of a pickup truck for that game, broadcasting it. It's always fun whenever we have it. A little bit better elevation than some places that we've been to, but
we digress.
But you're right. The words of James Shannon, we digress. So, Lighthouse, Bowling Green. James, who you got on this conclusion on Halloween?
Hey, so for the record, so I actually picked Lighthouse to go 2-4 this year, and I picked Bowling Green at 0-5. And my prediction, if it comes true, those standings will stay intact. So I am picking Lighthouse Christian to go up to Kentucky and get the win.
Of course, with the season Bowling Green Warriors have had, on paper they should lose, but this team really needs a win to close out the 2020 season. I mean, after all they've been through, they've had to cancel a few games. Of course, they had to take it on the chin to Matty Dang and company and some other teams. So I'm thinking Bowling Green gets the upset just barely, 30-24.
Hey, boys.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, Zach, I'm wondering if it would be easier with cues if we actually turned our cameras on. Like you could do the video.
This is the last cue we have anyways, but Zachary, who you got?
I want to see Zach, though.
I know you do. What do you got?
I have Lighthouse.
Any elaboration?
Not really much of an explanation. Well, I mean, Lighthouse and Bowling Green both struggled this year. But I think Lighthouse is the better team, and they'll pull it out to finish the season off. Bowling Green will give them a 5, but I just don't think they have the talent right now to match up with Lighthouse.
All right, well, as far as I'm aware, James and I will be on call on Halloween for that game, and Friday night it'll be me and our sound-off guy, Mr. Hellwig, calling Ezo Harding and Lancaster Christian.
Yes, as much as I would love to spend my Halloween with you guys in a pickup truck, I will actually be I'll actually be working, getting maybe
Spencer,
like
did we have a
$20.
lone wolf on that pick?
Yes, we did. That was it was the Jets saying Bowling Green was going to take the W.
Interesting.
All right, there you go.
Well, any final shout-outs before we sign off, James?
Shout out to technology for making today happen.
Yep.
Despite how rough it
Mix
was.
for hosting every episode of the Tennessee 8-Man Update for you. Mixcloud.com/RFCC Lebanon. I'll recap some of these picks that I've made and James has made and talk about those on Tuesday, as well as talk about my power rankings as I see them as well.
Yeah, shout out to the Jet for coming on the show, giving his picks early and giving his thoughts on everything. I'm looking forward to going on your show the first weekend of November ahead of the playoffs. And shout out to you for taking the time on your Sunday. Zachary, any shout outs?
We can get on the Zach and Jack over on the update.
I mean, they probably could if they wanted to come on this Tuesday. I'm sure they don't.
This
have anything.
Tuesday.
Hey, I mean,
Depends on the time.
either Monday or Tuesday, something like that.
I say it depends on the time. I'm a busy bee.
I know you are. Zachary will be able
is.
to at the least, though.
Yeah.
What happened? Sorry.
The Jet's asking about you and Jack going on the show possibly this week.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah. So you just
I'll say if you can't get me, you definitely got Zach. So
Yeah.
You at least got something to go home with.
Yeah, you got something.
Little breaking news here on Extreme Radio.
What's that?
No, I'm just saying
Yeah.
Zach will be on the this week's episode of the Tennessee 8-Man Update.
Yeah, it's gonna be special. All right. All right.
I have a shout out.
Go ahead.
Done.
Zach.
Shout out to Gostowski for crushing all the Titans fans' dreams of going 16-0.
Yeah, there's nothing better that I wanted for a. There's no better.
Always
There's no
bound to
better
be
late.
something to go wrong with your team. Think about it this way: the Steelers may be 6-0, but they're going to go 6-1 next week.
There's no better late present that I wanted than absolutely having both my teams crushed on the same weekend. One,
Hey, at
was
least-
demolished, and the other one because of a non-Pat McAfee kicker.
At least the Braves didn't get. No, your team didn't get eliminated from the playoffs on your birthday.
I've actually
Game 7.
I've actually had that happen. Oh
Heard
wait, no, I
about that.
haven't. I'm a Browns fan.
It might have. I might have been affected if I really cared about baseball. But,
I can hear someone mowing their lawn in the background.
Oh, that is currently me. I'm currently.
No, I'm near the highway.
Ah, okay.
Ah, my guy.
Yeah. Hey, well, shout out to Zachary for making his debut back on Extreme Radio and getting back into the swing of things. Glad to hear him fully recovered. So, all right. Well, all the shout outs are done. All the picks are done.
Whoa! You have one more person here, brother. I'll say I'd like to just one special shout out. And we can discontinue. I'd like to give a very special shout out to my boy Bernie Kosar for following me for all my Baker Mayfield slander on Twitter. Appreciate you very much. I know I'm such a riot on Twitter. I know the guy is like 40 years. He's like double my lifetime span, but he's older.
we've got Bernie Kosar following him, and he can't beat Manny Ding in a foot race. He is
Ooh.
producer Jack.
You got anything to rebuttal to that?
I don't. What am I supposed to say? I didn't lose in the foot race. That's clearly on video. right.
Uncontroversial evidence. But.
Are you ready?
Yes,
Can we
sir.
get ready to foot race Kenyon Drake?
Oh, you want to talk about some Kenyon. I'm glad I got that boy off my fantasy team. But anyways.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Extreme Radio, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Request your appointment online Mention 8-Man Extreme, $20 off your new patient office visit fee, and Jets Pizza. Let's get Jets. For James, the Jet, Zachary, Jack, I'm Spencer Thompson. We'll see you Friday for Esau Harding in Lancaster, and then Saturday for Lighthouse and Bowling Green.
A distant see ya!